Hi, we are now at 1313 Dauphine Street. We are probably, 4 or 5 blocks removed from the historical French Quarter. So the streets, as you can see, have quieted down. But this is the home of Clay Shaw. You can see he's got a courtyard that's been bricked in. Quite a nice layout here. Detached garage. And this is where Jim Garrison had him arrested and charged with the conspiracy to commit murder against the President of the United States. Obviously, if you're going to shoot this high, remember, this is Clay Shaw. He owns the trademark. He's one of the richest men in New Orleans, one of the most powerful men in New Orleans, very well-to-do, connected socially, his name. One of the movers and shakers in this town. And of course, by this point, Garrison, like any good investigator is going to do, is going to wait to arrest the biggest fish, at least in this town, until he has a case. And what he's learned through his investigation so far is that the alias Clay Bertrand, was actually Clay Shaw. It was Clay Shaw who had called Dean Andrews, his law school friend, and told him to go to Dallas and represent Oswald. We already know that Clay Shaw was the financier based on evidence that we've gotten from David Ferry, Eladio Del Val, Jack Martin. He was the guy footing the bill for everything happening in that Newman building. Remember, the trademark was 3 blocks removed from the Newman building. It's just a quick, short walk. So he's pretty convinced that Clay Shaw, is paying for the conspiracy that involves all these players. David Ferry was supposed to be the getaway pilot. Lee Harvey Oswald's the one under arrest for the assassination. Worked out of that Newman building with Guy Bannister. And Clay Shaw's the one paying all the bills. And then when Dean Andrews gets the phone call, and the alias Clay Bertrand tells him to go to Dallas and represent Oswald, it's like it brings the circle home that Clay Shaw is the guy, the CIA's guy here in New Orleans running this whole conspiracy. Now, in the subsequent trial, Clay Shaw will tell 2 very, very big bald-faced lies and get away with it. And the one lie is that he was not Clay Bertrand. Even though after he's arrested here at this building, this house, when he's processed, he tells the arresting officer, when they ask him for any possible aliases, he lists himself, Clay Bertrand, as one of his aliases. That evidence later gets thrown out in court, and one of the biggest pieces of evidence that Jim Garrison had linking him to this conspiracy, at least the part to go represent Oswald legally, gets thrown out, and he doesn't get to use it. And then, of course, subsequent to that, 2 of the witnesses that could pinpoint Clay Shaw and his involvement are both killed suspiciously. Both die suspicious. One of them is hacked to death by a machete in Miami. That's Eladio Del Val. That's pretty suspicious. The other one is David Ferry, who dies of this ruled as suicide. Nobody believes that. But anyway, those are the 2 witnesses that can confirm or corroborate that Clay Shaw was involved in the conspiracy. And the second lie he tells is that he has no CIA connections. This doesn't come out for a few years later when I think it was a 201 file, whatever the CIA uses as a file to indicate that they had paid somebody that was an asset. Was one of these files was discovered, and Clay Shaw turned out to be their biggest man in New Orleans. So here we have, in the moment, Clay Shaw gets away with these 2 lies because the evidence about the alias gets thrown out, and there's no corroborating evidence after those 2 witnesses die that he's involved in the CIA. He gets away with those 2 lies, and so he gets off the trial. He ends up being found not guilty. We find out years later, not only was he Clay Bertrand who gave the order, he was also the CIA's top man here in New Orleans, which now, by extension, you can understand why the CIA fought the Jim Garrison trial as hard as they did, because if Clay Shaw goes down, that points right to the CIA as running this whole conspiracy. So Anyway, this is the home. He's arrested on March 1, 1967. Now, the question is, well, why did he have an alias? Is that because he was in the CIA? Is that because he was trying to be covert? No, it's a little bit more sinister than that, I guess. Turns out that Clay Shaw was a homosexual. Now, today that wouldn't mean anything, but back in 1963, if you were a admitted homosexual, it would kill your business, it would kill your political aspirations. It would be one of those things that you couldn't recover from. And so he had a secret life. In his public life, he was Clay Shaw. That's how everybody knew him. In his French Quarter life, where he had parties and slept with all these male prostitutes and things, he was Clay Bertrand. And when they arrested him, they went into his carriage house, which I'm assuming is this house here to the side, and they found whips, links of chain, a black hood, a matching black cape, and all the things that a homosexual lifestyle would engage in or have access to or have in their possession. So that's why, in a very practical sense, why Clay Shaw had the alias, so that he could lead a double life and people wouldn't put two and two together. People did, and that's how Jim Garrison knew that he was Clay Bertrand. We'll get to a restaurant here in a minute where the bartender identified for Jim Garrison that Clay Shaw and Clay Bertrand were the same person. Anyway, and of course we have the arresting officer who asked for the alias, and he gave it willingly as Clay Bertrand. So this is the guy that got on the phone and through his alias ordered Dean Andrews to go to Dallas the night of the assassination and represent Lee Harvey Oswald. This is the guy that financed, according to Jack Martin, according to Eladio Del Val, according to David Fair, this is the guy that financed all the goings-on at the Newman Building. And of course, at the Newman Building, you're talking about David Fair, you're talking about Guy Bannister, you're talking about Lee Harvey Oswald. The conspiracy came from New Orleans. Now, the objective Jim Garrison had was not to pin everything on Shaw. He was hoping that by arresting Shaw and putting pressure on Shaw, if he could squeeze him hard enough, Shaw would turn state's evidence and reveal who his bosses were. And of course, we know his bosses were the CIA. The CIA actually, during the Garrison trial, established what was called a Garrison Squad. And their only job, these are CIA people, their only job was to rat fuck the whole Garrison trial and infiltrate it and mess it up from within and destroy it. That's exactly what they did, and including killing witnesses. And that's exactly what they did, because they knew how important Clay Shaw was to protecting their own identity. They had to protect Clay Shaw. If Clay Shaw goes down, the CIA goes down. So they protected him at all costs. So this is Clay Shaw's house. And I encourage you, if you've never seen the movie JFK, or read Jim Garrison's book On the Trail of the Assassins, both of them paint the picture of how important New Orleans was to the JFK assassination. It all started here. Well, it didn't start here. This is sort of where it culminated. This had been brewing for a long time. So anyway, that's it for Clay Shaw.